If you were watching last time, you'll remember hearing all about the River Nile. It's on the west bank of the Nile that all the great rulers, the pharaohs of Egypt, are buried. A little while ago, a film unit from Finland went out to look at the marvelous carvings on their tombs. They came back with the story of Pepi, an Egyptian boy who lived 4,000 years ago and who learned to be a scribe. That's to say, a person who writes the records of official business. This is Pepi's story.
4,000 years ago, a statue was made of me, where I sit at the feet of Thought, the god of wisdom. I studied to become a scribe and to learn to distinguish between right and wrong. I learned that good and bad always battle against one another, and only the wise Thought can judge between them. On his head, Thought bears the sickle of the moon, and he has the face of a sacred baboon. But I wrote down on papyrus all that I could understand, all that I saw and heard, so that people would follow the voice of their bellies and not the sweet whispers of falsehood. When I was still a child, I was told the tale of the two monsters and King Nama. The monster had the body of a lion and the neck of a serpent. At the beginning of time, they attacked one another, as the forces of Upper Egypt attacked the forces of Lower Egypt, and chaos ruled the valley of the Nile. But then arose a mighty king in the shape of a bull to battle against the powers of chaos, and trampled under his feet the enemies of Egypt. The great king, the bull of his mother, came and united the valley of the Nile from the south to the north into one kingdom. Through the land on high poles the signs of royal power were carried before him. The necks of those who rose against the king were severed, and their heads were placed upon the ground between their feet. The great King Nama wore on his head the crown of Lower Egypt. In his hands were the whip and the mace, and in his belt the royal giraffe tail. With Nama went his faithful sandal-bearer, called Star. King Nama put on the crown of Upper Egypt and quelled the rebels of the Nile Delta in the north. He overthrew the enemies of the kingdom right to the shores of the great Green Sea. The victorious King Nama. May his faithful sandal-bearer Star live in health also. This is my Nile. It still flows from south to north. It brings moisture and feeds both its banks with black, fertile soil. When I was a child, Egypt was still young. Frogs, dragonflies, and grasshoppers dwelt in the secret reeds on the banks of the Nile.
Pepi, you must not go down to the shore without your mother's permission. There may be crocodiles.
I know a crocodile spell. Crocodile, crocodile, long of snout and angly. Stay away. Do not look this way. I point at you 2 fingers. You do not see me, crocodile. Stuff down your throat the juicy zay grass. Do not see the cattle wading in the water. Do not heed the cowherds. Stay away. Do not look this way.
The men of the marshes paddled their papyrus boats, cursed away the crocodiles, and the whole heavy-horned herd reached the pasture unharmed. I saw a little calf that the cowherd carried in the stern of the boat. Its mother licked her little one's tail in alarm. Those were the happy days of my childhood. This is the Nile of my childhood. I saw the seasons changing, and I saw the rotation of life. During the flood time came the cranes from the north. My father took me to the shore and said,
"Look, the hippo bears its young, but the crocodile already lies in wait for it. The lion falls upon the wild ox. The hedgehog of the desert snaps up the locust. The gazelle feeds its fawn and suspects no ill. You must know that there is Setek, the lord of the desert. He is mighty. The wild beasts are in the service of the lord of the desert. Look, the struggle is hard. Setek, the lord of the desert, raises the fierce wind and sends drought and chaos. Setek sends the wild beasts. The forces of life bring order once more and drive away the drought, so that the great river will flood in time, so that life will continue and the beasts will increase. Order and chaos, night and day, drought and damp, good and evil struggle eternally.
And my father sent me to the far-off city, so that I could go to school to learn to write and read and obtain a respectable profession. He put me on a ship with 14 pairs of oars and great sails that were steered by 2 rudders. On the 7th day, we reached the city of the south, and I saw other ships, and a sailor who leaned over the side of a ship and scooped water into a pot. With boys of my age, I was taken to the House of Life, and we saw the superintendent. We saw carpenters who were making great gates from tete wood, and lotus pillars from Lebanon cedar. We saw the carpenters make finely worked coffins for those who had gone to the western land. We were not permitted to stop, but were led through the courtyards and corridors of the House of Life to a great hall.
Your Highness, the boys are here.
On a high throne there waited a woman dressed in white. A more beautiful woman I had never seen. She looked at us, and we were afraid. We knew that she was Nofret, judge of the Supreme Court. And beside her sat her husband, Rahotep, high priest and commander of the armies.
Don't fear, sons of Egypt. The great king himself, our father, the Pharaoh, permits you to come to the House of Life to serve him. You have seen how the farmer sows the seed, and the herd of goats tramples it into the fertile earth, and how the field workers turn it into the black soil with a plough. What would Egypt be without oxen and field workers? What would Egypt be, too, without scribes? The scribes direct all work. Study diligently and be friends together. School friendship fosters professional ties. Study diligently so that you may please our father, the great Pharaoh.
And Nofret, the judge of the Supreme Court, raised her right hand to her breast to signify that the occasion was ended, and she said no more to us. But we were led to a much smaller room, and before us were set pen cases, containing a reed pen and 2 colour blocks, black and red. Then we saw our teacher. He looked at us mockingly and said, "You may call me by the name of It-Shebet, the father of letters." And he took us to the house of ducks and said, "See, one preens its wings, another scratches its breast feathers, a third scrapes its toes. Like the ducks, you too are satisfied with yourselves. But remember, the duck may be made to eat, even if it struggles against it. So can the schoolboy be made to learn letters." And the father of letters took us to the house of the hyenas, which smelt bad. Look, the hyena can be fattened. The lion can be tamed. The monkey that is brought from Ethiopia learns to listen to words. The ears of the schoolboy are in his backside, and he listens when he is beaten. And we saw a scribe with a reed pen behind his ear, making a record on papyrus of every morsel the hyena ate. And we saw other scribes diligently at work, for in Egypt everything is carefully recorded.
And because it was carefully recorded, in word and picture, we can read the story 4,000 years later. But how are people going to learn about us in 4,000 years' time? Film, videotape, even paper, they all deteriorate and decay. A lot of film that is only 60 or 70 years old has already been lost. By good luck, the artist who carved many of those pictures also left us a picture of himself. So, 4,000 years on, let's give him his credit.
This man was Ni-Ankh-Ptah, the artist, who drew these pictures so that they would live forever. He drew birds, fat geese, ducks ready plucked, calves' heads, vegetables and figs, sweet-scented water lilies and lotuses. All this he drew on the wall of his master's grave, the great Ptah-Hetep.